and welcome to another edition of Flashback to the Track, presented by Blue Emu. That's right, for maximum strength, pain relief. Rely on Blue Emu, especially Blue Emu Super Strength. Available at Walmart. And you know what I saw, Mark? I saw these displays at Walmart that are all like NASCAR branded. Like I saw those like posted up from Blue Emu. So shout out to Blue Emu going full bore with the NASCAR branding.
They're the official pain relief product of NASCAR, folks, and Major League Baseball.
That's right. They're in the major leagues. Okay, this isn't no national thing, all right? This is major.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah. that's the difference between like soccer and American football, or should I say football and American football. Is in America, football is major leagues, or football is just a national league. You know what I mean?
I don't, but that being said, this is a podcast about racing. So we are talking today, James, about not a race, not Truck Month, because Truck Month's over. It was fun.
Yeah, Truck Month's over. It was fun, yeah. Hopefully everybody had some fun with that and got a chance to win that signed truck hat from Blue Emu, signed by I believe it was Austin Hill.
Yes, I believe it was a hat from Victory Lane, I think, was it?
Yeah, one of those hat dance hats. So you probably got the fresh sweat of Austin Hill in that hat. Because do not try to clone him. He did not give you the right.
He was the winner of the Blue Emu 200 at Kansas. So
Blue Emu Maximum Strength 200.
Oh, well then.
It's like the SpongeBob SquarePants movie 300. You got to
Best race name ever. Go back and listen to that episode. It's on Spotify. We did that way back in the day at the beginning. This is episode 51, by the way. We didn't even really acknowledge that we did 50 episodes. So that's pretty cool.
I mean, we kind of did, but we're not like NASCAR where you need to have some great golden anniversary. We go to 51, which is even better because that's like James Finch's number. So,
exactly.
Rock on.
It's like Stuart Kirby's number, friend of the show.
Stuart, shout out. Hope you're doing good, dude.
Hope you're selling lots of homes in the... Where does he live?
Yeah, I thought he was in Florida. The market probably is good for him if he's in real estate still. Oh no, he was in Myrtle Beach area, I believe. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Stuart.
Can't remember. Go back and listen to that episode and find out. Yeah. So we're talking about behind the scenes content today. You know what, James? In the early 2000s, reality shows were kind of like all the rage. Like when Survivor came out and then Big Brother and all the reality shows. Everybody needed a reality show, and NASCAR had several. Today, we're talking about FX, their NASCAR reality show, NASCAR Drivers 360. And hopefully that just like nostalgia your mind right there, because you probably remember watching this if you're our age.
Yeah, I mean, this was probably one of the most it's kind of weird to say groundbreaking shows for the sport, but I mean, before this, there were some one-off bits of like, behind the scenes content, but nothing as consecutive and continuous as this series was. This was a pretty cool series because, you got to see not only the behind the scenes of like the sport and kind of what goes on, with certain teams and drivers, but to the point of the drivers, you get to see into their lives, a little bit of an aspect of the day-to-day routine that happens Monday through Thursday when you don't see them Friday through Sunday at the track. It's a very in-depth series, I must say. But one thing I did learn from all of these houses, Mark, is my kitchen is not as big as the majority of these Cup Series drivers' kitchens. I mean, they have islands and like full setup fridge, like geez.
You could fit my entire house in like one of their motorhomes, probably.
I mean, you live in a townhouse, though. So
yes, NASCAR drivers live a lavish lifestyle. Well, the top ones do. Not all of them do, but the ones in this episode sure do.
Yeah. Some of the ones featured for sure. In this episode, I think we get a great mix of everything because we get some lavishness, but then we also get some reality checks as well. But I think it's a great mix on this episode, and I think that's why we picked this episode. So to kind of get more specific with this show, the show ran for 3 seasons. We're looking at season 2, episode 2. Now, normally when this series was running, Mark said it was on FX, so it was a Fox affiliate. So they would record the behind the scenes content from the Fox half of the season I think it would just mainly be the first 10 races.
Yeah. When did Fox go until? Usually Daytona in the summer, right?
Yeah, they went to Daytona.
Or Sonoma. It depended.
Daytona or Sonoma. I think this year they went to Sonoma because it's 2005 and they had the 500. So they went to Sonoma, but it wouldn't cover every race from like Daytona to Sonoma. I think it would at least cover 10 races, and there were like 10 episodes. So, from the first season, it was weird because the Daytona 500 wasn't the first episode. I think Rockingham was the first episode or something like that, which was funny. But in this season, Daytona's the first episode, so it's following the season, and now California is the second episode. So we got to see kind of what happens in the Daytona 500, and now we follow into the second episode. And now every season they're following about like, I'd say 5 to 8 drivers.
I think it's like 7 because I think it's like like Harvick, Busch, like a bunch of guys. So I think but only 3 per episode usually.
Yeah. So like, every episode would be different. So it wouldn't be the same 3 drivers every episode. Sometimes, one driver could be on for the whole season, but like, it would have a rotating cast of other drivers that would be featured. One of the most prominent ones in 2005 for sure was Rusty Wallace. I mean, it's Rusty's last call tour, man. So he was also featured in the series, I think in season 1 as well. Yep. So it's really cool to see him because 2005 we get to see RWR come into play, and a lot of cool things with that that you don't get to see if you're just watching practice, qualifying, and race coverage. And then from the 2 seasons on FX, the show evolved and became a series on ESPN. So it went from NASCAR Drivers 360 to the new title, NASCAR Drivers Nonstop. It just rolls right off the tongue, Mark.
NASCAR Drivers Nonstop. I do prefer that to NASCAR Drivers 360. Although the graphics at the beginning of 360 were pretty great. The car even does like the 360, so that's kind of cool.
The song is just
the music in this show is excellent. It's a very like 1980s vibe. I dig it a lot. Still kind of relevant today. You hear a lot of that kind of music in these sort of shows. So very, very well done.
Very well done. Done by Niles by Nielsen, the composer of such fire hits of our time as Over the Top, Heavy Hand, Lead Lap, Daytona, and of course, Thunder. That's right. Those awesome tracks we all remember from the EA Sports games, as well as like the early 2000s, like the mid 2000s NASCAR when the Nextel era came in. Those were all composed by this gentleman. So, wow, I mean, crazy.
You hear those tracks, man? It just takes you back. It's like an Instagram post. Take me back,
especially Thunder, dude. Like, damn, like when I first heard Thunder as a kid, I was like, what is this? Like, this was like a total like rebranding for NASCAR. It was like a shift in the direction that they wanted to project the sport, and like, this music was a huge part of it. At least to me, it was very influential because they pushed it a lot.
Yeah, it's very recognizable, and it sticks in your mind a lot. I find, like these tunes and the way they do it, like to kind of they segment between parts. It's a very well done show. Like, it's not cheesy at all. Like, it's very well done in the way it's edited. So James and I, obviously, we both do video editing, and when I watch this, I'm never annoyed by anything that's going on editing wise or structure wise. It's very well done. So just like an all around like solid reality show.
If anything, I'd say it was kind of influential to some of the shots I like to try and capture, especially the B-roll footage, because this show is, we all know the A, B, and C roll footage. This show is popping with B-roll footage, and that B-roll footage is just makes me drool. You know what I mean? Like, especially those 120 frame per second shots that they're getting, like, of the cars, like while they're going like 200 miles an hour on the front straightaway. Oh, it's so beautiful. And they slow it down and speed it up.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, because there's speed ramps in this, and I noticed that, and I was like, that's way ahead of its time, because that's like a totally overused thing we do now, and they were doing it back then. So I
did edit just recently. I was like, man, I need to stop doing this.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the most overused trope.
Not only that, but like filters too. There was a lot of really good editing in this show, and it was just like, to me, NASCAR Images probably was really behind this series, because they are the ones at the track with so much access. They were probably like, this is a great way to showcase our best footage from these drivers during the race, because it was pretty cool, like the way they set it up, because they always hype up the race like at the beginning of the episode, so you get to see all that sexy footage in the beginning.
And this episode in particular, so the one we're looking at, as James said, so season 2, episode 2, the 3 drivers featured in this episode are Robby Gordon, because we have to do one about Robby Gordon, because, like, come on, he's like my guy. Casey Kane, and as we mentioned before, Rusty Wallace, because it's Rusty's last season. There are other drivers on the show throughout the season, like Harvick, Kurt Busch, Mark Martin.
Jeremy Mayfield, I believe he's featured in both seasons.
Kenny Wallace as well.
Jinx.
And Wallace is like, it's featuring his like his Busch series deal, so it's like different, right? And Jamie McMurray's featured as well. McMurray's not featured in this in particular, this episode, but he does appear in it quite a bit.
As well as Kenny Wallace. So I mean, it's cool that you get to see some overlapping as well. Probably that's how they got these drivers. But it's nice to see like multiple drivers, and then also with the 3 drivers that are featured, you got 3 different ranges for what they're doing as far as a race week, just a day-to-day life. So I mean, you got Casey Kane, young, hot shot, up and coming driver, bachelor for sure. He's living the single life. He's doing his thing. Then you got Robby Gordon. He's a team owner, Cup team owner. So he's all his life revolves around Robby Gordon Motorsports. That's Robby. And then Rusty, I mean, Rusty's doing a lot, man. He's a entrepreneur, man. He's a self-made man. He's got a lot of different, avenues he's working on. He's got his little business ventures. He's got his little race team, but then he's also got to juggle running the Cup Series, especially in his last season. So I mean, that you got 3 interesting storylines right here to kind of sink your teeth into if you like that juicy gossip.
Yeah, and each has brings something so interesting to the table. So we're gonna just go through them each individually, and then we'll kind of meet up part way. And we got to start with my guy, Robby Gordon. So Robby's story is interesting because this is the first year that he started his own Cup Series team. So he had his own Busch Series team. Actually, I guess he had his own Cup team in 2000 with John Menard, but that was a failed venture. They did a few races that year, like 17 or 18, and then he drove for Childress. But then he left Childress at the end of 04 to start his own Cup team. He had his own Busch team in 04. He thought they were very successful. And honestly, they had a lot of success that year, a lot more than what anyone would have thought. So he said, you know what, let's move it up to the Cup Series. He always wanted to be his own team owner. And you get the angle of him being a driver owner and a single car team, which is so rare now. And even especially at this point of NASCAR, I think the only other single car team, competitive single car team, was the Wood Brothers.
PPI too. I mean, those were
PPI.
The only 2. I would say this, in the regards, backed full-time single car efforts, because like if you saw other single car efforts, I mean, their quarter panels were blank. So for Robby and these teams to have like big funding on their cars was huge. But I mean, Robby as a single car team, he was struggling, man. I mean, he bought that team from Jim Smith. You can check that out in our Ultra video if you check that out.
Just click right here.
Time. Click somewhere. You'll find it. And if you're listening, just start tapping. It'll appear. One thing that Robby did have to struggle with this team was getting everything together. Okay, he's kind of on his own island. He didn't partner with a bigger team like Hendrick or Richard Childress to get motors. He decided to go with his boy John Menard. All right, the 2 decided to build their own engines for the Cup Series, which is, I mean, unheard of. And Darrell Waltrip will tell you is what drove his team into the ground, basically, was having their own engine program. But Robby is his own man, and he's going to do it his way. And I mean, dude, like you can remember the 2005 Gatorade dual races. Robby was strong in his dual race.
Yeah, finished 7th and didn't make the show. He was in the show coming off of turn 4, but Kenny Wallace passed him before the start finish line and got into the 500. Because back then, folks, we had like 65 cars show up to the Daytona 500. So you had to get a top 5 in your dual race to even make the show if you weren't locked in. And this was the first season of the top 35 in owner points rule, where you had to be in the top 35 to be locked into races. The other 8 positions were open. Before that, it was based on provisionals, which is a very confusing system that I still don't really understand. This was actually the first year I started watching NASCAR in detail. So I grew up with the top 35 in owner points. I know all about it.
Yeah, the Stam Top 35. And that's kind of what sucks too, because Robbie does mention in the episode, like, he worked so hard in 2004 and it was just for nothing because like now he has to start over with his team, which I mean, you understand his frustrations, but also, I mean, it's like, dude, you gotta take the pill, swallow it, and go along. But I think the biggest hurdle that he had to overcome early on in the season was from Daytona. He had that penalty from I believe it was an illegal manifold that was on the car when the car went through tech, and NASCAR saw it and they were none too happy with the team for trying that. To Robbie's defense, and to state this in the episode, it was a legal part from what he understood. He just put it on the car and they went through tech, and NASCAR didn't like what they saw. And this is probably one of the coolest aspects of the beginning of the episode is you get to see this interaction when the phone rings and Robbie picks up, and who's on the other end but NASCAR. And they're going to lay down the law of what happened to him at Daytona.
Yeah, and I think he decides he wants to appeal it, and his staff are like, no one's ever won an appeal, right? So maybe we don't bother appealing it. And then he makes a joke that he's going to sue NASCAR.
Yeah, to put it into context, it's like no one's going to win when NASCAR's got the ball in the court. And I mean, Robbie's the kind of guy who'll go fearlessly into that battle, though. So props to him, but I don't think he got that appeal. So,
and I think NASCAR is trying to find him points, and he doesn't have any because he didn't qualify for the race.
He's negative points now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it makes me think of Michael Waltrip in 2007. Remember when he had the jet fuel, whatever it was, in the manifold, and he got negative points after the Daytona 500 too because he failed to make it as well. So it was hard because when you're a single car team and you miss the race, the first race, you're already in the hole because everyone's gained points and you haven't. Now he's negative points because he got fine points. So it's like, dang, what is going to happen next with Robbie? But, as we move on through Robbie's week, the next day we see him like in the morning. He's awake. He's downstairs with his team manager. They're talking about, finalizing a couple things before California. He's sitting on his counter, feet in his sink, in his kitchen.
In his pajamas.
He's like wearing a Red Bull t-shirt and some board shorts. He's got a landline in one hand and a flip cell phone in the other, like trying to call some guy who's calling him on the other line. And he's just like, it's like, what a problem to have back in the day.
Oh, it was solid. And the team manager's there. And of course, Robbie lives on Lake Norman because it's like the most like NASCAR driver thing to do is have a big house on Lake Norman. Of course.
It's like, what did Dale do? Oh, he did that. I'll do the same thing. So I don't know. I've never been to Lake Norman, Mark, but as I start my venture up there, I probably will never try to buy a house on Lake Norman. It just doesn't sound like a good idea.
I don't think I'll ever be able to afford a house on Lake Norman, so I don't think I need to worry about that.
I see, like lakefront property is the worst. Like I'd rather have beachfront property. Yeah, you get a hurricane, so what? But lakefront property, man, that's always expensive.
Well, if climate change keeps going, I might have beachfront property soon, so we'll see.
Oh, me too, man. Gotta give it 20, 30 years though, and I'll be out of here though. But
I was going to go in. So like there's a scene in his house as well where he's packing his bags because they're going to go to Fontana for the second race. And then they're going to stay out there because there's an off weekend, but he's racing in Mexico City with his Busch car. And then they're going to go to Vegas. So they're going to be out there for 3 weeks. And he packs one small suitcase. And I guess, I don't know if she's his assistant, but somebody from Robbie Gordon Motorsports is like, you're only packing 4 shirts or whatever. And he's like, whatever else I need, I'll buy. And I'm like, that's the most Robbie Gordon statement ever. It's fine. Whatever else I need, I'll just buy. Don't worry about it.
Hey, if he needs it, I'm pretty sure Red Bull will give him a shirt or some pants or whatever. Just the sponsors got me. It's Robbie Gordon. He's hooked up. I just find it funny though. Like one of the other statements she said too was that he packed more underwear than pants. And when I was thinking about that, I'm like, yeah,
that makes sense.
You know how much more he's going to go through more underwear than pants.
Yeah, because you can wear the same pair of jeans 4 days in a row as long as you don't stain them.
Yeah, just don't dirty your jeans up. Don't stank them up. You can wear those for a week tops.
Like when we go to a race weekend, I bring 2 pairs of pants for 4 days, but I bring 4 pairs of underwear. So
yeah, and I mean, like I'll wash my pants before I wash loads of underwear. Like, I'll just keep going through because you have a stockpile of underwear.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes more sense. So it's weird logic, people. It's really weird logic, but it makes sense if you know.
So they do the trip out west. That's kind of like the big thing they harp on. But when he gets out to California, you get this great interaction. They go to his other house in California. That's huge.
His family's house, yeah. Or was it his house?
I think it said it was his house, which makes sense. Because this guy's been in IndyCar. He's been in NASCAR. Money is no option. You can have two houses.
Also property investment is great and it's smart. So if you're learning anything so far from this podcast about investments, take a note from Robbie Gordon. Have multiple properties in multiple states.
Exactly. Own multiple homes. He has a nice chat with his father, Bob. So Baja Bob, as they call him. His dad, I guess, he was a driver as well, driver coach. He did all kinds of things in the sport, a lot of off-road racing. And he actually drove off-road vehicles for Robbie much far later on, like in 2009 and 2010, driving the Hummer when they did that program in Baja. So cool to get some insight and even get an interview with Bob talking about, how this is a lot for Robbie to take on, but if anyone can do it, his son can. He's got the work ethic for it.
Yeah, and it speaks to the relationship between Bob and Robbie. Obviously Robbie expresses early in this episode how close they are throughout his racing career. And he's a support system even to Robbie to this day as he's going through the venture of Robbie Gordon Motorsports, which can be a big pain in the ass because, there's a lot of growing pains that this team will go through. And since we're already in California, now we roll into practice day. So Robbie has to get his car through tech because, Mark, you love the system and I love it too. It's the impound days, my man. It's the weirdest time of NASCAR preliminary schedules. Understood why they tried to make everything go as streamlined with this impound system, but it just really wasn't as streamlined as it is today. And I think a lot of that is expressed in the episode through the tech line. And I think my point I want to make up about the tech line is the fact that the amount of officials that are there having to look at the tech template and how it meets the body and having to take that time and finally look at that just takes up a lot of actual time. Where if you look at it today with the scanning system that is used by NASCAR, tech is much easier and much more streamlined. The weekend schedule can be condensed more. You see a classic example of what teams had to fight going through tech just to get to practice when there was really only a 1 hour practice session for the entire weekend, especially for Robbie, because like teams like Robbie who are outside of the top 35 had to go home. So when they're making laps out there for practice, they're not making laps for practice to practice their race runs. They're just making mock qualifying runs the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. And that was really like this season. So we already talked about top 35 rule. Like this is the season of change, man. It was like, we're going to do all impounds, and it was all to try and save money. So there was no happy hour practices. So all the teams that had to make it in the show, man, like they couldn't ever practice race out. They had to just do mock qualifying run after mock qualifying run over and over and over again, or scuff tires for the race. And this was a weird era of qualifying because of that. It was like, do we want to try and win the pole? Because then we're going to be in our qualifying setup for the first 60 laps of the race. So it was a weird era. Fortunately, we have happy hour now. Well, this year we have no practice, but we did get happy hour back
things.
Eventually. Yeah. But this was supposed to be a cost saving thing, and it worked out. You gotta live within the system NASCAR gives you, and you know what? When they fail tech and the lead tech guy's like, you're gonna have to go back and get in line again. Sorry, and he's like, well, we gotta practice. Well, too bad. So go get in line. Those are the rules. I don't make the rules. So Robbie gets it's a pain, but Robbie makes the show, qualifies 35th. So at least he's in the race.
Yeah, I mean that was a huge aspect because as this we're gonna showcase right now, this episode only focused on one qualifying run, and that was Robbie Gordon's because his was make or break, and he needed to make this race because, as he even stated earlier in the episode, for him to fail twice, it is almost like the team fails entirely because it's hard to miss one race and gain your momentum back, but to miss the first two races in a row, that's a tough pill to swallow. So Robbie's in the race, But, we're going to look at Casey Kane and look at his week. He's had an interesting week. We start off by looking at the outside of Casey's apartment. Beautiful looking apartment. If you know where that salon is, you probably know where Casey Kane lived.
Yeah, so
I just like how it shows, like, you see the salon, like, you definitely could tell where he lived.
Like, I have those near my house. Like, he lives in an apartment above storefront. Like, we have those here, right? Condos above storefronts, and above a barbershop. So he lives above a barbershop with his brother Cole. So, like, he's a Nextel Cup driver, and they have no stuff on the walls. The trophies are on the floor in the corner, and he's like, hey, living a lavish lifestyle is not important to me. I'm never home anyway. So what does it matter? That vibes with me. I'd be the same way. I'd have like a crappy bachelor apartment. Like, why would I spend a bunch of money, man? I'm never home.
Hey, you're saving money basically for that 5,000 square foot home on Lake Norman that Cole wants Casey to buy.
Your career could end at any moment, so don't blow all your money, right? And it's funny because Christy Labonte's actually in this episode, and she's actually dating Casey Kane at this point. Are they still together? I have no idea. I don't know Casey Kane's personal life, so.
Yeah, I know. I try to stay out of Casey's personal life. He seems like a very private guy, so I'll let him be private. But what's not private is the view of his apartment. Like Mark said, it's a hot mess. It's okay, though. It's just two dudes living. I mean, who didn't live that messily in an apartment when they were Casey Kane's age? I mean, come on. It's just very, very just young living. One thing you do learn about Casey, though, early on is that he is close with his family. I mean, he's got his brothers, his cousin. They all moved with him from Washington on this journey into stock car country. And it's really cool to see because, he has this group of people that are always going to have his back and look after his best interest. And it's important for him because he's in a different landscape,
Yeah, and it's interesting to me that he hires his family for a lot of things. Like, I think Cole manages some stuff for him, and his I can't remember his cousin's name who spots for him.
I think no, it wasn't Cole, was it?
No, it was a different name. Because I remember I was watching this with my wife.
It's Kale, is it?
It's something different because she made a joke how like all their names start with a K. And they're usually names that start with C, like Casey and Cole, right? But yeah, his cousin as well spots for him. His brother helps run his race team, which is interesting because I've always been told, do not get into business with your family. It's the worst thing you could ever do. But for some people, it works, right? If you're very close with your family and you have the same goals, it can work out really well. So it's kind of interesting, especially early in his career, because you do hear stories about people's families taking advantage of them and things like that. But Casey always uses the term we, never I. We're here doing this. It's a collective effort, for him and his family that he's in NASCAR, which is great. And they're all down to earth and they eat on the patio at Hooters. So that's also featured in this episode.
Yeah. They're just average people doing average things. They even go to the restaurants we go to, people. But unlike when Mark and I, we don't actually go to Hooters. Unlike when other people go to Hooters, Casey Kane gets asked for his autograph, which he is honestly okay with signing. Good for you, Casey. Young Casey Kane, don't mind it. Don't try it with Casey Kane today, though. Just leave the man alone. Let him live his life, okay?
And we do get to see Casey hanging out, going to a Charlotte Bobcats game with fellow open wheel, sprint car competitor, and now NASCAR driver Tyler Walker. Because like that season, Casey was sharing a Busch Series car with Tyler Walker at Aikens Motorsports, number 38 Dodge, the Great Clips Dodge. So they were sharing that car. Casey acting as a coach for him, as also helping him set up the car. And it's funny because they go to a Bobcats game because Bobcats don't exist anymore. So
yeah, the Charlotte Hornets now. So it's kind of funny. It's funny too. They run into, who would it be? Jeff Gordon at the Bobcats game? What? Sitting courtside?
Of course, he's got courtside seats. Yeah.
He'd just be balling like a G.
And it's so awkward when he talks to me like, "Oh, hey, what's up? Yeah, you do the same thing I do. You're a race car driver. Cool." Like, it's just really weird,
Well, it's weird because they're just trying to hey, how's it going? Yeah, it's me. And to me, Jeff Gordon's always like that. He's like trying to be cool. He's like that cool guy, hanging out in New York with Jimmy Johnson and Casey Mears, just being cool.
Jeff always gave me the vibe that he's trying to be cool, but he's not. Like he's your dad. You know what I mean?
what I think what I'm trying to like put is like he's trying to be like that celebrity cool. You know what I mean? Like that stereotypical like, oh, what's Jack Nicholson doing? I'm gonna do that because he's celebrity cool. Like I don't know who else wants to go sit courtside at a basketball game. I have no desire to do that.
Same.
I don't know about you, Mark. No offense to basketball players. I think it's a basketball game's great. I just rather watch from home.
Same.
I find it more interesting, watching it at home. But I don't know, to save my money, maybe I'll buy my house on Lake Norman. But it's really cool to see after the Bobcats game, you get to see Kasey Kane and the opportunities that he gets as that young driver to connect and get mentorship from veterans like Bill Elliott, because he gets to fly with Bill Elliott from Concord to California. So think of that one-on-one time he gets with Bill to, just chat about whatever, whether it's racing, life, what have you. He's getting quality time with one of the veterans of the sport who also respects him because he's a young up and coming driver. And they're also in the same, fold, they're all in that Evernham fold because Bill's running a partial schedule in 2005 with Ray again, which is kind of cool.
And then you get to see him use that knowledge to mentor Tyler Walker at the racetrack and help him with the setup, right?
Yeah.
So he's got an obligation, as much as he's there to race his cup car, that sick Mountain Dew car, by the way. He's also coaching Tyler Walker in the Busch Series race. Man, they have that awesome Dodge Charger body that year, which was just so sick. The nose looked awesome.
Just like I love the Intrepid. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I liked all the iterations of the Intrepid. I thought it was just different. But like when that snout kick out nose came out on the Charger, I was like,
it was just so like ultra modern. Like I loved it, and man,
it just spoke to the weird lines of the Gen 4 car at the time too, especially with that weird shape that it had aerally where it wasn't equal, especially at like tracks like Fontana.
Yeah, it was sick, and he's coaching Tyler Walker because Tyler's like newer to NASCAR, coming up from USAC, so not a lot of experience on big tracks like that. So Casey's working with him, and you get to see that, which is a cool thing for a young guy to do, because I think Kasey at this point, I think he's 23, 24. He wasn't super young when he came up. He wasn't 18, but to get to then be a mentor right away, I think it's humbling. It's cool.
Yeah, and I mean he understands some of the kind of things Tyler might be feeling because Kasey was once in that transition from USAC open wheel to stock cars, so he could definitely like lean a lot and give Tyler like more feedback than I think he could probably give the team himself. And then another like huge thing we see with Kasey is like what keeps his calm demeanor, and that's the fact that he's surrounded again by his family. Cole and Kale are both at the track with him. They're working for the team, like Mark said, working with him. And, they're all living together in the RV. I mean, it's just like they're all there. Nothing's changed for Kasey. Even though he's at like the top level, he's still like kind of Kasey Kane. He's just trying to be him. And I think that's really cool. And it's really nice to see, kind of like a nice little bow on the Kasey Kane personal segment of the episode, which is really nice.
So James was right. I was wrong. I just looked it up now. His brother Cole is his spotter. Then he has, I think, another brother named Willie, and the brother that lives with him is Kale. You were right. So, and they all spell their names with K's, which is dope. So
yeah,
that's kind of
correct. Shout out to the family for doing that. That was interesting. But I remember when Cole was spotting for him and I heard that, I was like, that's really interesting, because like that family aspect and that trust is interesting, because I wouldn't be one to go into business with my family or anything. But yeah, if you really want to see Kasey doing a lot of family stuff, continue to watch the season, because there's a lot of really good stuff with Kasey Kane and his race team and his family as the season progresses.
Yeah, we did get to see some race team stuff in this episode too. Even at this point, Kasey owns a sprint car team. So
yeah, and it was more or less, they were talking more about, I think they mentioned that they wanted to go to the Copper World Classic, and that was their intention, but you don't really see a lot going into it. But, for him to have that ambition in sprint car racing, that's a huge event, the Copper World Classic. So for him to want to go and compete in that, I think his brothers also mentioned the fact that they understand the uphill battle that will be, and just to be able to go there and compete in alone would be a victory in its own self, rather than trying to go in there and think they can win. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they're actually building like a whole new facility at this point for his race team. Kasey Kane Racing still races today.
I like how the engineer came up with the blueprints, and he's like, "So, Casey, I got one question to ask you about the game room here." I'm like,
the game. Of course, there's a game room.
Wow, that's the most essential piece of
it. Has to have beer on tap, and it has to rumpus room.
It's got Mountain Dew on tap, son. You got the dispenser. You have Fountain Dew, Can Dew, Bottle Dew, or Slurpee Dew.
So the whole season, this is my first year, like I said, in detail watching NASCAR. Like I watched every practice, I watched every race, just like a 14-year-old kid. And I waited all season for him to run that Mountain Dew car again, and he never did. He only ran it at that one race. And I didn't understand that was something that happened at the time. Like I thought it was like, oh, it'll be half the season or whatever. And I remember getting so mad as a 14-year-old that he never ran that scheme again.
Well, it always sucks because they run scheme once and like for example, like it really sucks when they don't do good in the scheme and then you never see it again. It's like, no, what could have been? Like for example, Jeff Gordon and all of the Bugs Bunny cars he ever ran.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Especially 2002 because he didn't have a backup version of that one, which was funny.
All right, we'll jump back into the podcast in just a moment, but first, how about a quick word from our sponsors at Blue Emu. Now, I've been using Blue Emu Super Strength for about 3 or 4 weeks now, and I gotta say, it has been an amazing tool to have in my arsenal of just self-medicating things I can grab from over the counter. This stuff works great. It soothes the tired muscles I have primarily in my back, and that's where I normally apply it. And it's great because this formula is non-greasy, it doesn't stink, it's odor-free, so when I'm putting it on my hands, I don't feel all gunky and weird, and when I put it on my back, it feels great because I know that's not going to rub off on my shirt, it's just going to go right to my skin. And it's been amazing to use this really deep penetrating emu oil. That's right, this is made with true emu oil. So if you're looking for something different in the over-the-counter section and you're really trying to soothe those tired muscles and joints, try Blue Emu Super Strength. It works fast and you won't stink. So let's get back to the podcast.
But anyways, a thorn in Jeff Gordon's side in 2002 was a guy named Rusty Wallace. Rusty. So we're going to catch it with Rusty now. And we start by seeing him in his office with a lot of things to autograph. But don't worry, because Kenny Wallace is there, and he's going to help his brother any way he can.
Yeah, he's got, I think, so he had 25,000 autographs he was behind on. And he has mail that he pulls out, like letters dating back to 1998 that he hasn't responded to yet. And it's like, maybe I should get on this.
I hope the IRS isn't one of those letters in there. I'm just kidding. It's
I'm sure
definitely
he
not.
has people for that.
It's like directed to the Rusty Wallace fan club. But yeah, geez, like, I could see like how it stacks up and like, maybe you make a dent with it because they're diecast cars. Because like, for example, in the episode, you see like all the diecast cars are out on the boxes ready for him to sign. But like, geez, like the cabinet's full of boxes with just envelopes for like him to sign a hero card or for him to sign like a photo. That must be daunting. I wonder if he's even got all of those done to this day. Like, Rusty, we know you're good friends with Blue Emu. Reach out to them, reach out to us, and we can talk about this stack. And hopefully the 25,000 is more like 0,000 now.
Yeah, let's hope so. And I get it. It takes a long time to answer all those letters. It's. Oh, yeah. It's a lot of work, but hopefully
he wants to do it his way too. He wants like to you're saying, like he doesn't want to just like open it and just sign or like with love, Rusty. He wants to like actually engage.
That just reminds me of The Simpsons, where like Ringo Starr is answering every piece of fan mail, even he's 20 years behind. He's like, I'm gonna write back to every fan individually. They took the time to write to me. It's like I just have visions of Rusty at his house, like right now, handwriting fans letters.
To my dearest fan, Timothy, thank you for your 13 years of dedication. I'm sorry it has been 20 years since you last wrote me. Yes. How has time been for you?
Please forgive the lateness of my reply.
Who was in your circle? But someone. Something that's funny is like Rusty is like always doing something. So like, he's signing his autographs. but then he's off to do something else. It's not like he's just off to go have fun like Casey Kane, or he's like stressfully busy like Robbie Gordon. He's more like an entrepreneur. He's got to go visit one little aspect he's working on, then he's going to go visit another thing he's working on. So he goes from signing autographs to hanging out with his Busch team at the time, because Rusty Wallace owned a Busch team.
Yes, he heads down to Rusty Wallace Incorporated to hang out for a bit, and Jamie McMurray was driving for him. This is actually the first year where they're going full time. Rusty Wallace's team. They got the number 64, I believe it is. They had 66 in 04, and then the sponsor Duraflame left and wanted to keep the number. So he switched to 64, and he's got Jamie McMurray driving for him that year. Jeremy Mayfield drove for him that year, which is cool because like him and Rusty didn't really like get along very well during their career when they were at Penske together. So it's kind of cool that they buried the hatchet and Jeremy's going to drive for him. And, so that's cool. But McMurray's featured in this episode because he's hanging out at the shop. I don't know if they were doing like seat fitting or what they were doing that day. But he just has so much energy, James, and he asks so many questions. And he's just always trying to pick Rusty's brain.
Yeah, definitely trying to make the most of his time with the champion. I love his question where he's like, hey, man, so like when you turn the wheel, can you see over your hand? How do you see over your hand? Like Rusty looks at him like, boy, you better get out of my race car right now. Like, like why are you asking such dumb questions? Like I thought that was cute of Jamie, and like that just makes me like man, I love Jamie McMurray. He's so funny. I just like to have a McDonald's hamburger with Jamie McMurray and talk. Maybe we wouldn't have a McDonald's hamburger. Maybe we'd have a Beyond Burger. I don't know. Jamie,
McDonald's.
Let's go ride bikes or something.
Send us some money.
Don't send money, Jamie. I'm not your son.
But Rusty, just like we've already seen private planes in this episode, but Rusty hops on his private plane because you're not a NASCAR driver. You don't have your own airplane, and flies over to California. But he actually flies the airplane for some of the trip. So,
he is one of those. I remember seeing something about it in like. Inside Winston Cup in like the mid 90s on an episode, because it spoke to him and in his relationship with Miller Brewing Company, and the fact that he's always having to go and associate with Miller and like talk to the representatives there and all the executives. So he always had to fly. So he's like, oh, I'm tired of flying commercial, so I bought my own plane, and then I learned how to fly it too. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I'm surprised Bill Elliott didn't fly his plane, because we all know Bill likes to fly, and so does Chase, but that was interesting. It's kind of cool to see that drivers fly as well, because at one point, Mark, I almost got my pilot's license, but then I decided I didn't want to waste all that time.
Yeah, I think that's something I would look at later in life. Like I'll be like a guy like in his 50s or 60s that just goes and like learns to fly Cessnas, like wearing my cargo shorts with my high white socks, and I'll be flying my Cessna.
Well, see, Mark, no better time is now, because all we have to do is just keep recording this podcast. People won't know we're also spending our free time spending hundreds of hours learning to fly Cessnas. So hopefully one day we can be as baller as Rusty Wallace and have our own Cessna.
But I don't iron my pants, and Rusty Wallace does.
Hey, man, they're aerodynamic. Come on.
Exactly. Iron pleats in your pants. Rusty's bringing that back. And he's also all about the tucked-in shirt, man. Rusty even tucks his T-shirts in, which is not a look that I subscribe to. But
I'll be honest. I don't mind a tucked-in shirt look sometimes. So that's cool with me. I don't know about bringing back the ironed jeans with that crease, though. That's not me. But Rusty is a good sport about all this joking, even though he does get a little bit hazed at the photo shoot that he has to do with Jamie McMurray. It's a very impromptu photo shoot too. It's funny. Nigel Kinraid, though, he directs the undirectable, and he gets the shots he needs to. It's funny because Jamie doesn't know what he's doing. Rusty's just like, I'm here. I'm just going to wait for Nigel to say something. And the PR representative is kind of telling Jamie what to do. And then Nigel's like, all right, I just got to just tell him what I need, and I'll just get the shots and we'll be good. And I just find that whole scene funny because Jamie is like the worst person to work with, but also you can't be mad at him because he's being so funny.
Well, that's actually kind of, refreshing, because most of the time these drivers, and they have to do this stuff, they're just complaining the whole time. They don't want to be there. They don't want to do it. And at least he's joking around with the photographer and having a good time. Most of the time these things are painful. So
yeah, and I think another thing too with Jamie there is, I think Rusty said it the best. Normally you have these photo shoots in a studio and there's, it's scheduled ahead of time and you really have an understanding of what's going to happen. You're going to have to clear out your day. You're going to put makeup on. You're in a nicer element. It's when you don't know what's going on. I feel like, for them, they're a little worried, but probably having someone like experienced like Nigel being there for Rusty, because he's worked with him for so long, he probably felt at ease. And, obviously Jamie didn't know what he was doing, so he's just being silly.
And I remember being told that when I got in this industry, if you're going to have drivers for stuff like that, they're on a schedule. They got to know what they're doing when they get there. So,
yep. He kind of knew, but he's just a smart aleck. But then, after those, after his on-track obligations and all that's cleared up, Rusty still has to make time to cater to his fans, because you know what? It's Rusty's last call tour, Mark. And just like Mark Martin did when he announced his retirement tour, Rusty's got an obligation to the fans everywhere he goes, because they want to go see their hero one last time. So he's got to make time for the fans.
Signing autographs, hanging out, and it's funny because he actually says, he's like, I think I made the right decision. But that's hilarious because we all know from that episode of Dale Jr. Download that right after he retired, he immediately regretted it and wanted to come back. So he didn't make the right. Did he make the right decision?
Rusty, we know you. If you would have stayed at least until 2007, you would have made the chase until 2007. Probably would have won another race for sure, because in 2005, he had many chances to win races. But yeah, at least, dude, you bowed out gracefully, brother. Just got to say that.
He went out the perfect time. He really did. I'm glad he retired when he did. I'm glad we didn't have to watch a decline or anything like that. He went out having one of his best years. So.
Yeah, and no offense to a guy like Bill Elliott who pressed on for as long as he did. He just wanted to, because he had that competitive fire, just not the desire to run the full season, where Rusty was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to not do it at all. And that takes a lot of discipline to do that. So, kudos to him for doing that, because he didn't get back into a car until that test he did Fensky at Daytona, 2013 or something, right?
Yeah, he was out of it for a long time, but
he stayed away.
Yeah, and that's good, man. You work on your other businesses. You own dealerships. You own a Busch team. Work on this. Play a lot of golf. You'll fill your time, man.
Now, fans, if you've learned anything from this time, all this just first part of this whole episode of this show, you would have learned that you should invest in businesses like Rusty Wallace and be your own entrepreneur. Come on, be your own self-made man. Don't slip on no PP at the Costco. That ain't gonna happen. You gotta make it happen, like Robbie Gordon did. All right, make your own team. Buy a house in California and buy a lakefront property. All right, it's only going to increase over time.
It's just that easy, folks. It's just that easy.
Now.
Buy
My VHS
now.
tape will
Capitalism.
How to do
it
it all.
It's great. So
it's an 8-part series. You'll get part 1 and 5 today for free.
Yes, buy Dr. Money. Getting into the actual race now. So there is a race covered in this episode at the end, which is the 2005 Auto Club 500, a 500 miler at Fontana, in his race 2 of the 2005 NASCAR Nextel Cup Series season. And we'll start with Casey Kane's race. So Casey had a solid start, but he was looking to make up for not the best run at Daytona. They finished 22nd in that race. Obviously still early in the season and you can bounce back, but you want to have a good run. He's got it's got Mountain Dew on the car. So naturally the Dew crew on pit lane, they're making adjustments, working the car, but Casey had a vibration develop midway through the race and it didn't go well. He ended up crashing really hard in 1 and 2 and finished 40th. So not a great day.
No, it seemed like whatever happened to him, I think the same thing might have happened to Bill Elliott too, earlier in the race, because he crashed almost in the same exact spot, turn 1 and 2, same impact. So unfortunate day for Casey, because like you said, Mark, it's early in the season, but you don't want to start in a hole, you know what I mean, in the points. And that top 35 is big, and I think at this point he's 34th in points.
Yeah, he has a rough 2005. He really does. It doesn't really go the way the team wants, but
gets that win though.
He gets his first win, but he had a rough season. So
he did. Now to Mark's boy, Robbie Gordon. Now, I swear, Robbie Gordon's just the most interesting guy in this show, just because I guess the cameras catch him at all the right times. Like during the pre-race ceremony, he gets introduced to Bow Wow, as Bow Wow's walking the grid, I'm pretty sure Bow Wow's enticed by the look of Robbie's car.
Yes,
I mean,
it's right there, folks. If you can see it, I have the Harris car right there.
It's yellow and purple. It's straight paint scheme. Like, come on, that's like the coolest looking car he ever drove. I don't condone Harris casinos. I don't really care for them. But man, they had a really nice race car with Robbie Gordon behind the wheel. But then Robbie's like, "Yo, come on, come sit in the car." So he invites Bow Wow to come sit in the car, which is hilarious because Bow Wow's got like, he's like so mid 2000s with his look. He's got the baggy pants, bag clothes, cell phone, like the flip phone on his belt, like attached.
Yeah, that was cool at one point.
That was noise right there. Okay, that was like kind of cool back.
Don't do it now, but.
I mean, they probably didn't make Gucci, things. I'm just saying, if the Razor's coming back out, Gucci, like wallet, belt pouch, I need that for Christmas if I get a Razor.
Oh my god!
But the long story short about this with Bow Wow is he gets in the car, he likes it, he has a good time, and Robbie and him have a fun interaction. And in the end, Robbie's like, yeah, he wants to come and test the car at a test day, so we let him in the car. To me, that's a what could have been. That's a big what if. What if Bow Wow drove for Robbie Gordon Motorsports?
What?
I don't know. But then, as the race gets going, Robbie starts in the back because he had to qualify his way in. And he just had to qualify his way in. So he started in the back. Worked his way kind of in the like mid top 20s. And then all of a sudden, he decides to short pit, Smart strategy if everyone cycles around. Unfortunately, the caution came out and it trapped Robbie 2 laps down, which, I mean, that's a death sentence in NASCAR. If you're 2 laps down, it's pretty hard to make that up in a race. So Robbie's just trying to soldier on, make it to the finish. But unfortunately, as he fought to make it to the end, the number 7's engine would just let go. And it relegated him to a 35th place finish. That's hard, man. Because like
typical of that season for him, honestly.
I mean, that's just the motor program, man. It sucks because he even says it started out great at the beginning of the race and it just fell off, and he just sees the oil pressure peak, and he can't do anything. He's just driving a grenade at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's rough. He had so many engine failures that year and had so many good runs just go away because of that, and then switched to DEI motors at the end of the year. First race at Phoenix, top 10 finish because he had a reliable motor. So,
I mean, that team is a big what could have beens and what ifs, but at least that
definitely a team of our time, James. I would say maybe one day.
Maybe one day, or maybe we should talk about that team that just never died, which is his number 7 team. Jesus Christ,
forever an underdog, the number 7. Forever. But the final guy is Rusty, and he had a great run going. This Fontana is a good track for him, so he's won there before. He's always had good runs there with Penske, and has a great run going. He's in the top 10 all race long. They focus on his pit crew. Rusty talks about how he's had really good pit stops for a lot of years, and they usually gain him spots. But there is a pit stop during the race where they lose him 5 positions on pit road, just got hung up on the right rear. So not too happy about that, but they bounce back. Near the end of the race, though, they decide, are they going to come in or are they going to stay out on old tires for track position? He decides to stay out, and then everybody behind him comes in, which is always never good. You almost don't want to be up front at that point, So
you want to be where I believe Kurt Busch was. You want to be the leader. You want to be the furthest to the front with the most cars in between. And unfortunately for Rusty, I don't think he wasn't the leader, so he got eaten up pretty bad.
It worked out for race winner Greg Biffle, though. He stayed out on old tires and he won the race. So it worked for him, but not for Rusty. He dropped back and he finished 10th. So 10th at Daytona and 10th at Fontana for the first 2 races.
Hey, I mean, it's not bad. I mean, he even says it himself. Compared to last year, he was like 30-something in points at this point, and now he's 10th, so or 8th or whatever. So he's in the chase. That's all that matters, right?
Yep.
The chase.
And it's a solid start to the season. You said definitely the best start of the 3 guys. So, James, what are like your takeaways? If you had to like rate this episode, like what would you? I thought it was very entertaining.
I thought it was really entertaining. I mean, I'm serious. Like that point where Robbie Gordon is sitting in his sink on his counter. It's like that is the moment of the series to me. Like that is priceless. I like this one a lot more. I'd say season 2 was more interesting to me because of the fact that it wasn't so focused on that family aspect of a lot of these drivers. It was nice to see that, especially in season 1 with Ward Burton, or should I say Wad Burton, especially when he took those camera guys hunting. That was really funny. But
that was awesome, yeah.
I'd say this season was way better just because, you got to see more of the behind the scenes, more of the tick that made the teams talk. You know what I mean? What made these teams really work? I like that more than seeing the humility of the drivers. I know that these drivers are humans just like me. They just happen to race cars at excessive speeds. But in all honesty, I'd say this is an 8 for me out of the scale, because you get to see that cool purple Robbie Gordon car, even though he doesn't finish well.
Yeah, it's a 10 because it features Robbie Gordon. So, yeah.
Oh no, I mean the next episode, just to excite people in this series, if like you watch the next episode in season 2, I think it gets better for Robbie because you get to see more of Robbie just being Robbie. Because like the season 2 episode 2, it's definitely more Robbie being that team owner and having to deal with the adversity that comes with after the aftermath of Daytona and the adversity of just making the field for Fontana. Where Las Vegas, he still has that adversity, but you get to see the West Coast Robbie, and not a lot of people get to kind of see that. So I think that's kind of cooler to see on that next episode. So people check out this show, man. It's really great. Check out NASCAR Drivers on Stop. I love that show too. I mean, I don't know, this show was great to me when I was a kid. I loved it.
Yeah, man. In this episode particularly, like I remember watching it later in the season. I think it aired on Speed like late at night, like 10, 11 o'clock on like a Friday. Yeah, and this was really like the episode that really made me like a Robbie Gordon fan. Like it really made me start following him more closely because I was like, man, that's really cool. It's like this underdog guy. And then I became like the super fan of his. So, it really, mediums like this, in these shows really go a long way to creating new fans, to introducing people to new things, So it's cool because you don't have to be a NASCAR fan, I don't think, to watch the show. I think you could find it interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting aspects of it for sure for some people. So just don't watch that episode with what was it? I don't know. I thought the last episode of the first season was weird because the first season is really interesting because here's one aspect I think people will love about the first season. Dale Jr. is featured in the first season.
Oh God, yes, I remember this.
And I always remember the scene where he really thinks this one girl's attractive and he's too shy to go talk to her, so he goes and sends one of his crew guys to give her his number. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, he sends, I think it's like his PR person with his number and is like, hey, it's okay if you call him or whatever. And it's like, and then he invites her on a date and they actually go on the date with them. So it's interesting. And then she meets the whole family on the date. So if I was her, that's like not the best date. But
hey, it's Junior. I mean, he's just a personable guy. But I found that really adorable of Dale that he did that because I don't know. I felt like it gave me more confidence when I got older because I was like, man, if Dale Jr. can be that shy, I can be confident. What's the worst they're gonna say? So thanks, Dale. Thanks a lot. Thanks for that, man. No, I mean, it was cool to see that because even in this episode, people don't realize, for example, how I wouldn't say shy Casey Kane is, but he's not a very open person to a lot of people, and you kind of see his reserved side, even when the cameras are on and he's having that one-on-one moment where he's just talking. You hear it in his voice, and I think that's what you get. You get that extra understanding of these drivers in that regards to their humility, other than understanding what their personal lives are. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think that's better too, because you don't get that normally from the interviews that are Thursday through Sunday, because they're in their mode. They're like, I am the pitching machine of Dodge and Mountain Dew and all of my other corporate sponsors, and I know all the right things to say. Where in these moments they're a little more candid, and it's nicer to see.
Yeah, it's cool to get to see the drivers on a personal level, and you get to see, Casey Kane's kind of maybe more reserved shyness, Robbie's confidence and carefree attitude, and then Rusty's just having fun. It's his last season, so it's cool. It's a really cool show. There are some episodes on YouTube Thanks to SK Racing, who uploaded this episode that we watched on YouTube. There's a few from season 2 and some from season 1, so you can check them out. Actually, I think there's more up here that have just been uploaded recently. So yeah, definitely go check it out. NASCAR Drivers 360. So this is a fun episode, James. It's cool to talk about something that's not a race. Cool to talk about a piece of popular culture. So I really enjoyed NASCAR Drivers 360.
Yeah, I wonder how many people are going to be like, oh my God, IndyCar should do a version of it. Oh my God.
IndyCar needs a video game. Yeah, I know.
Like, it's like, no, like, everyone doesn't need to copy when NASCAR does something. I think like kind of your point earlier too, like, NASCAR was trying to like, capture that whole, we should have our own reality show. We should have our own, different kind of media platform. And this was definitely during that period where NASCAR was different. They were rebranded. They weren't Winston Cup. It was Nextel Cup. It was a totally Fortune 500 NASCAR. That's what I would definitely label this era for sure.
Still
Fortune
booming.
500
Yeah.
NASCAR.
Now you joke about IndyCar. I would watch an IndyCar Wives reality show. I would, because they have power wives in IndyCar. Like I would watch that for sure. So sign me up for that.
Who's Dario's wife again?
It was Ashley Judd. That's who you're thinking of, but they're not together anymore. His wife is like a hedge fund manager. See, the IndyCar wives always have their own stuff going on. That's what I dig about it. Like Scott Dixon's wife is like an Olympic athlete, and like
they didn't go to school for no MRS degree. All right,
exactly. Right. James Hinchcliffe's wife is an actress. Like so I want to see that show.
They're balling there. Yeah. I'd like to see. I think if people like think about it, the show does sort of exist with F1 Drive to Survive. But that's
this on steroids though. Drive to Survive is amazing. So
Drive to Survive is NASCAR Drivers 360 on heroin. Like
literally.
Steroids don't even like cover.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's like, I think the best thing about it is like how it's edited. Like,
oh my God, it's so beautiful to watch.
Like something like Radioactive or any of this other content that comes out from NBC or Fox, and just be like, that's nice. Like even this song, like the song used in the theming, like I'll tell you, any tough guy out there, any macho man will be like, I love that song. They straight up do, because it's just nice. Pardon my French, but it is. It's just, it's of the time. This whole thing was like a perfect storm. I don't know what it was, man. Like I remember, I don't know if you remember it coming afterwards, but there was a show in 2007. I feel like it was from the same production house, but it was about Michael Waltrip racing.
I remember watching this.
It was on ESPN as well.
Yeah, I remember watching it.
I feel like that's where it evolved. I don't remember what it's called, but if someone wants to look it up on Motor Trend, it is on Motor Trend. The app, they actually have the access to that show, so that might be another one to watch in the future. But the show was really cool because like the whole behind the scenes thing, like you got to learn a lot as a fan. You learn, and that's what's nice. Like it wasn't just all like, oh, Kevin Harvick eats Fruit Loops and Delana Harvick likes to pick up her dog's poop with a plastic bag from Kroger. It wasn't dumb things like that,
And there's also the other show from this time was NBS 24/7. You can check that one out. It's on YouTube as well. So
it's a little raw, but it's only 30 minutes too, so it's a little shorter, a little raw. But
any show that features Tim Fedewa, I'm down to watch. So
I love his mustache, man. Just like Tim Fedewa. Tim Fedewa should just have his own talk show.
He's Kevin Harvick's spotter, right?
Yeah, he's got time during the week. The Tim Fedewa talk show.
We should get Tim Fedewa on our podcast. That's up next. We'll get Tim Fedewa. Book it. It's gonna happen.
We won't come on, Tim Fedewa. But if there's anything we did learn from this podcast, is that we just love to eat up content from the mid 2000s of NASCAR. Like if you could just serve that up, like how like if you're just stuck in like this universe, like in Wall-E, where you had to be like in a drone and you just didn't move or anything, and you just consumed content all the time, I would just consume this NASCAR content
100%.
all the time.
Oh God, I still do that. Like when I'm like making graphics from like my clients, I'll be like watching NASCAR Drivers 360. I just constantly consume. Like, it drives my wife insane. I'm like, she's like, what are we doing this weekend? I'm like, well, we're gonna watch NASCAR. She's like, can you watch it upstairs? Because like I'm all racing out. I'm like, well, I will never be racing out. So
it's funny when I'm watching this and like my girlfriend will be in the room and she's not paying attention. You know, she's just like whatever, and I'm like and I'm like laughing and I'm like trying to talk about what's going on. She's just like, I'm not paying attention.
Like, that's great. That's cute. Good for him.
That's awesome. But you know, I think this was a good topic to talk on this week. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it. Check out the series. It's a really good one. We gave you a bunch of plugs of our other content to check out, so check that out as well. Also go give our friends at Blue Emu a check out. You can go check them out at your local Walmart. Like I said, they got that nice branded NASCAR Blue Emu, the official partner of NASCAR and Major League Baseball kind of branding going on. So be on the lookout for that. You know, get yourself some super strength.
And folks,
for all of your maximum strength relief.
Support companies that support NASCAR. That's the big thing.
Yeah, exactly. Support DoorDash. Don't use Uber Eats.
Have a good one, folks. This has been episode 51 of the Flashback to the Track podcast, presented by Blue Emu. Have yourselves a wonderful day, evening, whenever you're listening. And we'll see you next week.